Yes, me, Charlie Munger, before most of you were born. I had lost everything in the divorce, the real estate crash, and a few spectacularly stupid margin loans. I was 45 years old, dead broke and eating canned tuna 3 meals a day in a rented room in Pasadena. Today, the average millennial carries almost exactly the same real burden, about $300,000 when you add student loans, credit cards, and car notes, except you're doing it at 28 instead of 45. That should terrify you because I barely crawled out. Most people never do. But I did, and I'm going to show you exactly how. So you don't have to spend 20 years in purgatory like I did. Stick with me for the next 35 minutes and I'll give you the mental models that turned a tuna-eating pauper into Warren Buffett's partner. You know, I've spent most of my life telling people how to get rich slowly, but I never thought I'd have to start a talk by admitting I once went completely broke. Not just tight month broke. I mean flat on my back, eating canned tuna in a rented room, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering how a supposedly intelligent man could have been so stupid. Broke. It was 1969. I was 45 years old. I had just lost roughly everything in a divorce that cost me almost all the money I'd scraped together in real estate, plus a margin account that blew up when the market dropped 20% in 6 months. When the dust settled, I owed about $300,000, $1970, mind you, which is something like $2.5 million in today's money, and I had maybe $3,000 in cash and a 10-year-old Volkswagen with bald tires. I remember sitting in that little apartment on South Pasadena Avenue, adding up the numbers on a yellow legal pad, and realizing I was underwater by an amount that would take a decade to fix even if everything went perfectly. I felt like the world's biggest fool. Here I was, a Harvard law graduate, supposedly one of the brighter young men in Los Angeles, and I had managed to put myself in a hole so deep I couldn't see daylight. Now, fast forward 50-plus years. The average millennial today carries almost exactly the same real burden, about $300,000 when you roll up student loans, credit card balances, and car notes, except you're doing it at 28 instead of 45. That should scare the living daylights out of you because I barely crawled out, and I had advantages most of you don't. No student debt. Law school cost me $900 a year. Cheaper housing relative to income, and a stock market that was about to begin the greatest bull run in history. Most people in my position in 1969 never recovered. They spent the rest of their lives making payments to banks and finance companies, one step ahead of the repo man, dying with a negative net worth and a garage full of depreciated toys. I've watched it happen dozens of times, but I did recover. By 1978, just 9 years. Later, I was debt-free, had a couple $1 million, and was Warren Buffett's partner at Berkshire Hathaway. And I did it without any inheritance, without a tech startup, without a book deal or a YouTube channel. I did it with nothing but a set of mental models I had to learn the hard way, mostly by being stupid first and then refusing to stay stupid. So here's the counterintuitive truth I want you to chew on for the next 35 minutes. Getting out of debt and becoming rich is not primarily about how much money you make. It's about how little you're willing to live on while you fix the mess. The math is unforgiving, but it is also extraordinarily simple once you accept reality instead of wishing it away. I could have been twice as rich as I am today if I hadn't spent my 30s and 40s playing the status game with houses and cars and margin loans. That's not a boast. That's a confession from a man who's now 101 and has had a long time to run the numbers backward. Every unnecessary dollar I spent in those years cost me $20 or $30 I never got to compound. You, on the other hand, have something I didn't have at 28. You have me, shaking you by the collar across time, telling you exactly where the landmines are. You have 70 or 80 years of compounding ahead of you if you stop the bleeding today. That is the greatest financial tailwind any generation in history has ever been handed. So if you're sitting there with $40,000 in credit card debt, $90,000 in student loans, and a car payment that eats a quarter of your take-home pay, this talk is for you. If you're making 6 figures but somehow still living paycheck to paycheck because rent, travel, and self-care ate the surplus, this is for you. And if you're one of the rare ones who's still debt-free but feels the pull of lifestyle inflation creeping in, stick around. This is preventive medicine. I'm going to give you the same playbook I used to climb out of that $300,000 hole in 1969. No gimmicks, no side hustle hype, no crypto moonshots, just inversion, elementary arithmetic, and the kind of ruthless honesty about incentives and human nature that most influencers are too afraid to speak out loud. Because here's the blunt truth. Debt is the modern form of slavery with better marketing, and most of you are volunteering for it, one swipe at a time, but it doesn't have to stay that way. I'm living proof. And if an obstinate old codger like me could turn it around after losing everything at 45, you can damn well do it at 28 or 32 or 38. Stay with me. In the next half hour, I'll show you exactly how I did it, why almost everyone else fails, and the step-by-step plan that will get you free faster than you think possible. Let me say something that will sound harsh, but is simply arithmetic. Most of you are not middle class. You are indentured servants wearing better sneakers. You make $85,000 or $110,000 or even $150,000 a year. You live in a shiny apartment with exposed brick. You fly home for Christmas and you tell yourselves you're doing fine. But when you open the spreadsheet, if you even keep one, the truth is brutal. After taxes, rent, student loan payments, car insurance, health insurance, and the lifestyle you've decided is non-negotiable, your cash flow is negative every single month. You are borrowing to eat out. You are borrowing to look successful. You are borrowing to go on the group trip to Tulum so nobody thinks you're falling behind. The numbers, as my old friend Ben Graham used to say, don't lie. Average millennial household has roughly $36,000 in non-mortgage debt and $160,000 in student loans once you include the graduate school crowd. 1 in 3 Americans under 35 has more credit card debt than emergency savings. Median net worth for those under 35 is now negative $3,000 and falling. Total U.S. consumer debt just crossed $17 trillion. That's more debt than the entire GDP of Japan and Germany combined. I have spent 90 years watching credit cycles, and I have never seen anything like this in peacetime. In 1970, when I was digging out of my own hole, total household debt in America was about 45% of GDP. Today, it's over 100%. We have normalized something that used to be considered disgraceful. You have been sold a fairy tale that good debt exists. There is no such thing. There is only debt you can service comfortably and debt that owns you. Almost all of yours is the second kind. I once knew a bright young woman, let's call her Emily, who graduated from a respectable state school with $78,000 in student loans. Perfectly reasonable, everyone told her. She took an entry-level marketing job in Denver at $58,000. Her loan payment was $840 a month on the 10-year plan. That is 23% of her take-home pay before she even paid rent. She told herself she would refinance later and get raises. 10 years later, she is still paying the same $842, now earns $92,000, but her rent went from $1,500 to $2,600, and her car payment is $620 because the 2018 Subaru felt safer. She has made exactly 0 extra payments in a decade. She will be 50 before that debt is gone, and she will have paid almost $140 for a $78,000 loan. Compound interest works both ways. People say, Charlie, you don't understand. Everything costs more now. I understand perfectly. When I got out of law school in 1948, a new house in Los Angeles cost 3 times the average annual salary. Today it costs 10 to 15 times in many cities. But here is the part nobody wants to hear. Your grandparents did not solve that problem by borrowing 6 figures at 18% interest on credit cards and calling it normal. They solved it by sharing apartments, driving old cars, eating at home, and treating debt like a loaded shotgun pointed at their future. Instead, you have turned consumption into identity. You do not buy the $200 iPhone because it is $1,200 better than the $400 Android. You buy it because you cannot bear the microscopic social risk of being seen with last year's model. You lease the $55,000 SUV because you believe on some level that your self-worth is tied to what you drive into the Whole Foods parking lot. I am not moralizing. I did the same damn thing with sports cars in the 1960s. The difference is I eventually admitted it was insane. The worst part is the invisibility of the chains. Slavery used to come with literal iron. Today it comes with rewards points and Apple Pay. You feel free because the cage is velvet lined. But every month, the minimum payments leave your account whether you notice or not, and the interest clock keeps ticking while you sleep. You are working 3 or 4 hours a week for Visa and Discover for the rest of your life, and most of you will never escape. I told you this would be blunt. Good. Sugarcoating is what got you here. But here is the encouraging half of the equation. Because the problem is so obvious once you refuse to lie to yourself, the solution is equally obvious. Debt is a math problem, not a moral failing, and math problems have answers. I crawled out of a deeper hole than almost any of you are in, with worse interest rates and no internet side hustle fairy tales to comfort me. If I could do it starting in 1969 with a hangover and a stack of collection letters, you can do it starting tonight. So let us stop pretending and look the monster straight in the eye. The monster has a name, and its name is compulsory consumption financed by high-interest debt. Kill it, and you will be freer than 99% of the people walking around calling themselves middle class. Next, we'll talk about why almost everyone who tries to kill it fails, and why you don't have to be one of them. I have watched hundreds of bright young people try to get out of debt and fail, not because they were stupid, many were much smarter than I ever was, but because they fell into one of 4 psychological traps that are so well designed they feel like common sense. Trap 1, the education investment delusion. You were told that borrowing $120,000 or $220,000 for a degree is good debt because it will pay for itself. I have yet to meet the first human being for whom this was true when the interest rate was above 6% and the degree was in anything that did not end in medicine, dentistry, engineering, or nursing. I knew a young man named Alex, Stanford computer science grad, class of 2015, borrowed $180,000 total for undergrad plus master's. Took a job at a Bay Area unicorn paying $165,000. Everyone said he had won the lottery. 5 years later, he still owed $198,000. Yes, the balance went up, because the minimum payment didn't even cover the interest. He was still renting a room in a 4-bedroom apartment for $1,900 a month and eating ramen. The degree was an asset on paper, but the debt was a 25-year mortgage on his life. Stanford didn't pay the loan. Alex did, every single day. Trap 2, lifestyle creep, masquerading as mental health. You tell yourselves you deserve the nice apartment, the Peloton, the $18 oat milk lattes, the annual international trip. You call it self-care. I call it slow-motion suicide with better branding. I did the exact same thing in the early 1960s. I was making good money as a lawyer and real estate developer, so I bought a Rolls-Royce on credit because I was tired after long weeks. Felt magnificent for about 3 times. Then I spent the next 7 years paying for it while the engine rusted. The car didn't make me happier. It made me poorer and more anxious. Same with your $200 Lululemon leggings. The dopamine hit lasts 48 hours. The payment lasts 48 months. Trap 3, normalizing usury. You have been conditioned to think 18 to 29% credit card interest is just part of life. Let me translate that for you. There has never been a period in recorded human history when borrowing money at 18% compound interest was a path to wealth. Never. Not in ancient Babylon, not in medieval Venice, not in 1929, not ever. Show me someone who is comfortable paying 24.99% APR, and I will show you someone who will be renting at 75. You would never invest your own money at negative 20% real return after taxes and inflation. Yet that is exactly what you are doing every time you carry a credit card balance. Trap 4, the waiting for rescue fantasy. You are waiting for the big raise, the promotion, the side hustle that goes viral, the inheritance, the crypto pump, the stock options. I have watched this movie 1,000 times. The raise comes, and so does the bigger apartment. The side hustle makes $800 a month, and you immediately raise your standard of living by $800 a month. The crypto pumps, you buy a Tesla. The rescue never arrives because the moment money shows up, lifestyle eats it alive. I knew a software engineer in 1999 who made $600,000 exercising options during the dot-com peak. By 2004, he was broke again because every dollar of new income had been matched by a dollar of new spending. He is now 58 and still has a mortgage that won't be paid off until he's 83. These 4 traps work together like a perfect machine. The education debt gives you high fixed costs. The lifestyle creep eats the raises. The high-interest credit cards fill the gap. And the rescue fantasy keeps you complacent. The worst part? You compare yourselves to each other, not on net worth, but on visible consumption. Instagram is the most expensive app ever invented because every photo of someone else's vacation or kitchen remodel quietly raises the bar for what you think you need. I fell into every one of these traps myself in the 1950s and 1960s. The only difference is that eventually I got sick enough of being sick to stop lying to myself. You do not have to wait until you're 45 and divorced and bankrupt to reach that point. You can decide tonight that the game is rigged against you and simply refuse to play by those rules anymore. That is what the next chapter is about. The one mental flip that let me escape, and that will let you escape faster than I ever did. Inversion. We are going to stop asking, how do I get rich? And start asking, how do I guarantee I stay poor forever? The answers are hilariously obvious once you have the courage to look. And then we do the opposite. Most people try to get rich by chasing the upside. I got rich by refusing to lose. The trick that finally pulled me out of the hole in 1969 was something I stole from a long-dead Prussian mathematician named Carl Jacobi. His motto was, invert, always invert. Instead of asking, how do I become wealthy? Ask, how would I guarantee that I die broke? Write the answers down. They are childishly simple. Spend more than I earn every year. Pay 18 to 29% interest to borrow money for things that drop in value. Never learn the difference between an asset and a liability. Buy things to impress people I don't even like. Wait for a rescue that never comes. Once you see the formula for poverty in black and white, the formula for wealth is just the mirror image. Do the opposite of every single item on that list, and the math becomes unstoppable. That is all I did starting in 1970. Nothing fancy. No options, no real estate flips, hot stocks, none of it. Just inversion and elementary school arithmetic. Here is the exact system I used, boiled down to a rule so simple you can run it on a napkin. Live on 50% of your take-home pay. Put 20% toward debt annihilation, highest interest first. Save and invest 20%. Keep 10% as guilt-free fun money so you don't lose your mind. Most of you are laughing right now and saying, Charlie, that's impossible in 2025. I answer, I did it in Los Angeles in 1971 on $100 a month after child support and alimony. Rent was $175 for a studio above a garage. My car was a 1963 Volkswagen with 142,000 miles and no reverse gear. I ate oatmeal, canned tuna, and rice. I wore the same 2 suits until the elbows shone. I read library books under a 40-watt bulb. I was miserable for about 6 months. Then I got used to it, and within 7 years I was free. You do not need to be that extreme, but you do need to be extreme for a season. Think of it as financial chemotherapy. It hurts like hell for a while, then the cancer goes into remission and you get your life back. Let me show you the arithmetic with real numbers. Suppose you bring home $5,000 a month after taxes, 50%, or $2,500 living money, 20%, $1,000 to debt, 20%, $1,000 to index funds, 10%, $500 fund money. Yes, you still get to have a life. Now watch what happens to a typical millennial debt load under this plan. $40,000 credit cards at 22% average, $80,000 student loans at 6.8%, $22,000 car loan at 7%. Total debt, $142,000. Normal minimum payments, $2,100 a month, mostly. Interest. Under the 50-20-20-10 plan, you throw $1,000 extra at the highest rate debt every month while paying minimums on the rest. The credit cards are gone in roughly 28 months. Then you roll the full $1,000 plus the old credit card minimum, $900 onto the car loan, gone in another 10 months. Then you throw $2,800 a month at the student loans, gone in under 3 years. Total time to zero non-mortgage debt, about 512 years. Meanwhile, your $1,000 monthly investment has grown to roughly $90,000 at 8% average return. You are 33 years old, debt-free except maybe a modest mortgage, with a payment you can easily cover on 50% of income, and you have a 6-figure portfolio that will become 7 figures while you sleep. If you keep living on 50% forever, you will be financially independent before 50. If you relax to 70% living after the debt is gone, you will still be a multi-millionaire by 60. That is not theory. That is exactly what happened to me, to dozens of people I've coached personally, and to every single boring millionaire nobody ever writes articles about. The beauty of inversion is that it removes emotion. You are no longer negotiating with yourself about whether you deserve the new couch. You are simply refusing to do the things that guarantee poverty. One last Mungerism. The safest way to get what you want is to deserve what you want. The world is not good at screening, but it is pretty good at rewarding people who refuse to stay broke. I have spent a lifetime watching money stories play out in real time. Here are 5 of them. Names changed, numbers exact. Story 1. Rick, the man who refused to change. Failure. 1984. Rick was 29, fresh out of UCLA Law School, clerking for a federal judge in Los Angeles. Starting salary $42,000. Huge money then. He immediately bought a brand new Porsche 944 on a 6-year loan and a condo in Marina del Rey with 5% down. By 1989, he was making $185,000 as a big firm associate, but his monthly nut was $9,800, and his take-home was $9,200. The 1990-1991 recession hit. The firm laid off half the associates. Rick went 6 months with no income and $400,000 in debt. He filed bankruptcy in 1992. I ran into him in 2018. He was 63, renting a one-bedroom in Reseda, still making payments on back taxes from the bankruptcy. Net worth negative $180,000. He spent 35 years practicing law and died poorer than the day he graduated, all because he would not drive a Honda and live with roommates for 3 years. Story 2. Sarah the Teacher, the Quiet Millionaire, Success, 1992. Sarah was 24, teaching 3rd grade in Omaha, salary $24,000. She lived on $12,000 a year in a 350-month apartment, drove a 1984 Corolla paid cash, ate peanut butter sandwiches. Every extra dollar went to Berkshire Hathaway B shares. This was before they split. By 2000, she owned 180 shares, bought at an average price of about $1,400 each. She never made more than $58,000 in her entire career. Today, those shares are worth roughly $8.2 million. She still drives a paid-for 2011 Camry and still clips coupons. She is 57 and could buy half the school district if she wanted to. She simply refused to raise her lifestyle when her net worth did. Story 3. Maria the Nurse. Debt escape in 39 months. Success. 2016. Maria was 31. Single mom. Registered nurse in Dallas. $72,000 salary. Debt. $38,000 student loans. $24,000 credit cards. $19,000 SUV. Total $81,000. She moved into a 900-month 2-bedroom with another single mom nurse, sold the SUV, bought a 2009 Accord cash with the trade-in difference, picked up every overtime shift she could. Take-home jumped to $6,200 month with OT, lived on $2,800, threw the remaining $3,400 at debt highest rate first, paid every dime off in 39 months. By the time her son started kindergarten, she was debt-free and putting $2,000 a month into index funds. Today, 9 years later, she has $340,000 invested, a paid-for house, and will retire at 55 with over $3 million if she keeps the pedal down. She sent me a Christmas card every year that just says, "Thank you for the inversion talk, Mr. Munger." Story 4. Justin the Tech Bro. The $700,000 lesson. Failure. 2015-2021. Justin joined a Series B startup in San Francisco at 26. Salary $130,000 plus options. Immediately moved into a $4,200 a month loft in Soma. Leased a Tesla Model S. Flew business class everywhere. Options vested in 2021 worth $1.4 million pre-tax. He spent $700,000 in 6 months. Down payment on a condo he couldn't afford. Watches, parties, a Tesla Plaid. Startup went public. Lockup ended. He sold the rest for $600,000 after taxes. Condo lost $250,000 in value in 2023. He was underwater, sold at a loss. Today at 35, he has $18,000 in a Robinhood account, $62,000 in credit card debt, and rents a room in Oakland for what I signed $600. Net worth negative again. He still talks about the next one. Story 5. Me, 1969 to 1978. The original comeback. Success. I've told you the ugly part. Here's the rest. 1970 income roughly $40,000 gross, but after child support and alimony, I cleared about $18,000. I lived on $9,000 a year. Every remaining dollar went to the highest interest debt first, then to partnership interests in a small real estate syndicate and a tiny slice of Buffett's partnership before it closed. By 1975, the debt was gone. By 1978, my net worth crossed $2 million, all compounding from there. I was 54 years old, 25 years behind where I should have been, but finally free. Everything Berkshire became after that was just extra innings. 5 people, same country, same decades. 3 refused to trade future freedom for present comfort and ended rich beyond dreams. 2 chose comfort and ended broke, or close enough. The difference was never intelligence, never luck, never privilege, It was always the willingness to endure a few years of discomfort so they could have decades of freedom. You get to pick which column your name goes in. In the next chapter, I'll give you the exact 7-step checklist I wish someone had handed me in 1969. Follow it for 18 to 60 months, depending on how deep your hole is, and the game is over forever. No theory now, just the checklist. Do these 7 things in order, and you will be debt-free and compounding within 5 years, often much sooner. Step 1. Tonight, the brutal inventory. Open a spreadsheet or a yellow pad. List every single debt, creditor balance, interest rate. Minimum payment, rank them from highest interest rate to lowest. Do not skip this step 1. I have never met a single person who turned their finances around without first staring the monster in the face. While you're at it, add up your total monthly obligations, rent, subscriptions, car, everything. You will be shocked. Step 2. Call every creditor. Tomorrow morning, ask for a hardship rate reduction. Script: I'm putting together a plan to pay this off aggressively. Can you lower my rate to help me do that? 70% of the time they will knock 10 points off if you sound calm and serious. I did this in 1970 with the finance companies charging me 18%. Got most of them down to 11-12%. Saved me thousands. Step 3. Sell or eliminate. Every depreciating asset. You do not need the car you're underwater on. Sell it, take the bus, or buy a $4,000 beater cash. The motorcycle, the boat, the gaming PC, the designer wardrobe, gone. Subscriptions? Cancel everything except the one streaming service you actually watch. One young man I know sold his 2021 Tacoma, still owed $38,000, and bought a 2008 Civic for $5,500 cash. His payment went from $722 a month to $120 a month insurance. He paid off $62,000 in other debt in 22 months because of that one move. Step 4. Cut housing to the bone for 24-48 months. Move if you have to. Get roommates. Move 30 minutes farther out. Move in with parents. Move to a lower-cost city entirely. I knew a couple in Seattle paying $3,400 for a one-bedroom. They moved to Spokane, rented a 3-bedroom house for $1,600, and paid off $114,000 in 31 months. Same jobs, remote. Housing is the #1 wealth destroyer for millennials. Fix it ruthlessly. Step 5. Create a debt-killing cash surge. Pick up a second income source for 36 months. Nights and weekends. Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, tutoring. Freelance coding, graphic design, writing, bartending. Every single dollar of surge income goes straight to the highest interest debt. I mowed lawns and did title searches on weekends in 1971, 1972. Humiliating at age 48. Worth it. Step 6. Use the debt snowball on steroids. Once the surge money is flowing, attack in this order. Highest interest rate first, avalanche method. When one debt dies, roll its payment plus the surge money onto the next. Celebrate each kill with something under $100, then keep going. The psychological momentum is ferocious. Most people finish 30-50% faster than the spreadsheet predicts because the payments get massive toward the end. Step 7. The day the last. Non-mortgage debt. Guys, take one evening off. Have a steak or a bottle of wine that costs no more than $100. Take a photo of the 0.00 balance. The very next day, redirect every dollar that was going to debt into low-cost index funds, 70%, and a small cash reserve, 30%. Never, ever, ever borrow again except for a mortgage you can pay off early if you choose. That's it. 7 steps. I've watched nurses, teachers, coders, bartenders, soldiers, and single moms execute this exact list and become millionaires. I have watched Ivy League MBAs with $300,000 salaries ignore it and stay broke. The steps are boring. The results are spectacular. You now have the complete playbook. I used to go from $300,000 in the hole to partnering with Warren Buffett in less than a decade. All that remains is the final warning and the gentle kick in the pants you may need to actually start tonight instead of next month. I am 101 years old. I have watched every financial mania and panic since the 1929 crash. I have seen farmers lose everything in the Dust Bowl, tech millionaires jump out of windows in 2000, and perfectly nice families lose their homes in 2009. Across 10 decades, the pattern never changes. The people who end rich are almost never the ones who made the most money. They are the ones who refuse to pay interest to other people for very long. The people who end broke are almost never the ones who earned the least. They are the ones who kept volunteering to stay in debt. That is the entire game. Everything else is noise. You are young. You have 70 or 80 years of compounding in front of you, the most powerful force in the universe if you give it clean fuel. But every dollar you send to a credit card company this year is a dollar that will never compound for you. Every $1 of interest you pay at 22% costs you roughly $30 when you're 65. Every unnecessary car payment is a future beach house you just set on fire. I wish someone had grabbed me at 28 and said, "Charlie, you idiot, stop trying to look rich. Be rich instead." Nobody did. So I learned it the expensive way, losing half my net worth and 20 good years. I am grabbing you now, across time, across generations, across the grave if necessary. Stop the bleeding tonight. Pick one thing from the checklist in Chapter 6 and do it before you go to bed. Just one. List the debts. Cancel one subscription. Post the car for sale. Send the text asking about the spare bedroom. One swing of the axe is all it takes to start the tree falling. You will feel deprived for a little while. You will miss the illusion of status. Your friends will think you've gone strange when you skip the group trip or show up in a 12-year-old Civic. Let them think whatever they want. In 10 years, they will still be making payments while you are making choices. I have seen the endings. I have held the hands of 75-year-olds who cried because they finally admitted they would die broke. I have also had quiet coffee with 45-year-olds who could buy the entire restaurant with pocket change and nobody in the room knows it, because they still fly coach and wear drugstore reading glasses. I want you in the second group. You deserve to wake up at 45 or 50 or 55 and realize the only reason you have to work is because you enjoy it, not because the bank owns your paycheck. You deserve to look your children or your nieces or your future self in the eye and say, "I fixed it. The chains stop with me." Do the hard thing now while you are young and resilient, and the rest of your life will be easy. Or do the easy thing now and guarantee the rest of your life will be hard. There is no third door. I believe you are going to choose the right one. I have to believe it because the alternative is too depressing.